This video was made possible by the Daily Upside, a free business and finance newsletter. Sign up using the link in the description below. If you could change one thing about your job, what would it be?
Only hot women allowed, high heels, pencil skirts, dresses, and skin tight pants. I have thought about this a lot. Those would be the only allowed work attires.
I'm sure a lot of you will say the management. In a recent study conducted by MIT, American workers identified management and the culture they create as the reason why they were looking for different jobs
Bullshit.
10 times as frequently as workers who were looking for another job to get a pay increase.
Okay, this is one of the most common misconceptions about management. Sure, there are situations when your management is absolutely legitimately terrible and make constantly bad decisions. It does happen because usually all level of management is just friends of the upper management, relatives of the upper management, or someone who they know. And yeah, these situations because of that happen. But the truth of the matter is something that a lot of people sadly do not want to hear, and I'm sorry if this offends you, but the fact of the matter is the average worker working in the average job and getting the average pay, on average, is a drooling goddamn incompetent mess. These people do not know how to do their jobs to the utmost success. They make a lot of mistakes. They take too much time to fulfill tasks, and so on and so on. So, management is stuck dealing with incompetency that they cannot erase and they cannot change. These people do not get better over time. They're always just flat out incompetent. And you know what these people do? They leave. They leave because management expects too much from them, because management is bad and so on. They will never understand or even accept the fact that they could be incompetent. No, it's always someone else's fault. And there's so many people who are like this. And they obviously will do just a human thing and blame someone else for their shortcomings.
Job to get a pay increase. Good managers do exist, but even if you are lucky enough to find one, they are often stuck with poor management of their own that trickles down throughout the entire corporate structure. In an age where
That's not necessarily true. But the fact of the matter is, your manager is asking from you most likely very little. Your manager's manager is asking from him 10 times more than he is asking from you. Because those people above your manager usually only care about the results. How you get them, don't care, as long as you produce them.
staff turnover is costing businesses billions of dollars a year, you might expect that companies would do their best to address this problem. But even
No. If you actually look at the studies, there are also studies that quite clearly claim that the average worker is becoming less competent.
companies like Google and Apple that do their absolute best to create world leading working environments are still called out for their toxic leadership.
Okay. There's an interesting thing that a lot of people don't know about big companies and how they function. If you're working for a company that has hundreds of employees, thousands or even tens of thousands, an interesting thing happens that you don't see in small businesses. Every department suddenly is for itself. Marketing only cares about itself, logistics cares only about itself, finances cares only about themselves. Situations like this are extremely common and pretty much the standard norm at businesses, and that's a huge problem. Because you see, businesses usually have bonuses at the end of the year, and these bonuses are, in a lot of situations, based on things like, for example, KPIs, which are complete bullshit metrics, by the way. But they're based on that, and sometimes these departments go against each other. For example, most recently, when I worked for the government, these KPIs were directly clashing most of the time against each other. For example, the sales department needs to make X sales. The only way they make X sales is if X places sell so much. Another department of efficiency, or whatever it was called, had the job of reducing places that sell things. And they had an X number of places that they have to reduce. And then if they do not reduce them by the end of the year, they do not get a bonus. So you see, there's a direct clash. The first place cannot make enough sales. If they don't make enough sales, they don't get enough bonus. They don't get their bonus. And if you reduce the amount of places that sell, they can't reach this. So the other place needs to reduce. Doesn't matter which places, but they have to reduce them. And these things cannot be changed. They're inflexible. And this is the insanity of the bigger companies. There are a lot of situations where a department is going to be willingly doing something to spite and destroy another department so they can get the benefits. It's quite insane.
It's not just staff turnover either. Management structures determine the direction of the companies, and it feels like every other week their poor performance is the reason behind a company going under. So why do managers always suck? Well, believe it or not, this has been studied in great depth by a number of business publications, and the results suggest this is not just people being angry at other people who are just slightly higher up the corporate totem pole.
Yeah, that's hard to believe. That is. Have you seen the people at the people at the bottom of the totem pole? They are always angry at management. One of the best examples that I can give you about this is when there's a problem, the people at the bottom know that it's a problem, and then they're talking amongst each other and saying, yeah, the solution for this problem is pretty simple. I work there. I see the solution all the time. My management is just too stupid to see it. I tell them, but they ignore me. And they offer a solution, and you think that is a normal solution. You actually think that, yeah, that should work. So why the hell isn't the management thinking of that solution? Well, the reality most of the times is management has already considered that solution before you even raised it. And they have determined that will be bad, because that will influence some other aspect that other person never even thought about. This happens all the time.
Managers always have and always will be terrible at their jobs, but it is possible to see why, and with any luck, you can use these findings to avoid being a terrible manager yourself. So it's time to learn how money works, which was made possible today by the Daily Upside.
By the way, how money works is pretty shit 50% of the times. I just kind of find their videos hilarious sometimes.
A totally free...
Well, it's better than business casual, I would like to say. If you have seen many of those videos, damn. 9 out of 10 things that place says is just wrong.
High-quality newsletter with a focus on business and finance. The Daily Upside employs a team of financial analysts to make sure that the stories they are putting out are more than just the opinions of journalists giving their hot take on some new issue. The Daily Upside picks the most important events and then tells you what you need to know about them in an interesting and concise way. I will admit that I have enjoyed it.
Okay, so if it's free, then it must be shit, because, you know, if their input is actually valuable and good, they would never give you it for free.
Endless scroll or two through brain-dead TikTok content when I first wake up. Fortunately, the Daily Upside is a much healthier alternative that gives me something to do while working up the motivation to flop out of bed.
Does it have women twerking? If not, I think TikTok's still better.
I particularly enjoyed the recent reports on the real reasons behind Netflix's catastrophic share tumble and insights into why Goldman Sachs' CEO...
I wonder what that's gonna be. Because they release shit and no one wants to watch it, so people are unsubscribing? Or is it gonna be some kind of elaborate, oh well, you see, no one is certain of the future type of BS-ery?
Feels like his $35 million salary was not nearly good enough. Use the link in the video description to sign up for free and enjoy having world-class reporting served to you every morning with the Daily Upside.
Sure.
Now back to our incompetent manager. There are some obvious issues to address first. In a perfect world, managers would be promoted into their positions after displaying strong proficiency in the roles they would be managing, or better yet, they would...
Absolutely not. The people who get promoted to managers are people who are okay at their job, but have decent social skills. Why would you promote your best worker to a position where he no longer can utilize his skills to the 200% he previously was utilizing?
Would be recruited because of their qualifications and experience in similar roles. Obviously, this does not always happen.
Yep.
Nepotism, favoritism, and plain old bad hiring decisions.
Favoritism is, by the way, the easiest way to get promoted. Like, you can be the smartest person in the room, but as long as you don't have the social skills, you're never getting promoted, and people are gonna hate you, in fact. You know, if you're smart, you need to have social skills, because no one's gonna look at you favorably if you're the one who is constantly telling your boss, yeah, this is a mistake, this is how we can do it better. If it's a small thing, especially. Like, people like that come off just as obnoxious, and they will be horrible team leads, they will be horrible managers, because they have no social skills. Being a manager is not only being decent about your job, but it's about having social skills.
Give us managers that should not rightfully have their jobs. But this is probably not as big of a problem as people think, especially not in large companies where hiring and promotion decisions are handled by strict working procedures, not in
LOL, anyone remember Blizzard where people got hired just because they're friends with the boss? Yeah, welcome to real life. That's how actually it happens.
individuals who could give the job to their useless son-in-law. Instead, one of the biggest problems is what business analysts call the Dilbert Principle. Popularized by comic writer Scott
No
Adams,
idea
the
what that
Dilbert
is.
Principle states that incompetent workers who are not bad enough to fire are put in supervisory roles to get them out of the direct workflow. This normally
Yes, I have heard bullshit like this, but by the way, I kind of have seen this happen in action, but it was a little bit different. So, in government institutions, in a lot of cases, you cannot fire a person if they have X medical criterias or X whatevers. So, what smart companies of the government will do in this situation, which is, I think, no longer than anywhere, because, yeah, it's just a human's right violation if you think about it. But previously, what they legitimately did, I was told, was this. They would take the person who cannot be fired legally without serious repercussions, and they would promote them to a different work. And that work would be literally sitting alone in some kind of office away from everyone else, and they would have zero job. They would have zero things to do. You know? They would literally have zero things to do. The point of that was to get them to leave on their own. Because, it sounds probably cool to do nothing for your work month after month after month, but for most people, that becomes absolutely intolerable. So they leave on their own. And that was kind of what was done. They were placed in a situation where they could do nothing. They were never asked to do anything. They were just the laughing stock of everyone. And that's how they got rid of them.
It doesn't happen directly, but rather it happens through lateral movements that line the Dilberts up for promotions down the line. If a Dilbert works in a research analyst team, but they consistently make coding mistakes which slows down the work of their fellow analysts, a manager might decide to move the Dilbert into a
No, a manager will just flat out fucking fire them. What kind of managers are we talking about here? So, incompetent person working, and they're not gonna get fired? And they're gonna get promoted? Yeah, no.
operational role. For example, this particular Dilbert might be put in charge of helping new employees, showing them around, and teaching them how to use the company system.
That's
This lets the
reasonable.
proficient analyst remain on task without having to stop or fix the Dilbert's mistakes, or teach the new employee how to connect to the office printers. Now, in a vacuum, this is good management. People should
Where the fuck do you not call IT when it's a printer issue? Man, I love to actually harass my IT. I would call... My printer stops working or whatever, I call the IT. You know what they tell me? That's not our job. You know what I tell them? Fix it. You know what happens? They don't fix it. You know what happens then? I tell my boss. My boss gets instantaneously omega pissed, calls their boss, and what do you know? They're fixing my printer.
be given tasks they can perform well. But the problem comes in when management positions open up in this hypothetical company. The Dilbert would
No.
have an edge over his arguably more competent peers because on paper, not only does he have the
Okay, so yeah, here's the issue. No one gets usually promoted just based on paper. Even if you are using the worst part of your company, aka HR, the most useless pieces of trash that have ever been invented in companies, you still usually consult someone in that department, aka the manager of that department who actually should be promoted if that happens. People are not just being promoted randomly. Like, what kind of bullshit is this?
experience of doing the business analyst work that everybody else did, but he was also
The only situation where something as BS as that should happen is when a company is so stupid that it outsources its overview of the company to someone who decides based on things on paper what should expect.
responsible for onboarding new employees, a skill that looks great for a potential manager.
No, it
Dilbert
doesn't.
gets their promotion because they were given a task to keep them out of everybody else's way. Now, I want you to remember this, Dilbert, because believe it or not, there is something to be learned from them about effective management, which I will address later. A similar concept in business management is the Peter Principle. This was a concept developed by Lawrence J. Peter, a hierarchologist, and published in a book of the same name. This theory states that good employees are promoted until they are given a job that they no longer can perform well, at which point they are no longer promoted and they remain in the position that they do poorly.
Actually, yeah, that's true. That is 100% almost true, but not even always. A lot of cases it's like that's the thing. That's why I said social skills matter. You are not gonna get promoted unless the people promoting think you can do a good job at it.
If a junior analyst performs well above their peers for a few years, they
Yes.
should be first in line to get a team leader role if it becomes available. If they do well in a team leader role, they might get offered a project management role. But if
Yes.
they suck at working on deliverable projects, then they won't be promoted again.
And they will be promoted into that role only if the management sees them fit. It's like you don't get that's the thing. You don't get promoted just because you were good at your old job. You get promoted if you were good, but you have more potential at your next job. If you can do it properly, if you actually have what it takes to be in that role. You don't get just promoted randomly because you're good at your current job. That's bullshit.
And this role will indefinitely be filled by someone who is not particularly good. Another great example would be Michael from The Office. By all accounts, he was a fantastic salesman, and that's why he was promoted to regional manager. The problem was that he lacked the skills or personality to perform this role effectively, so he stayed there for 3 years on end, making the life of his subordinates miserable. The Peter Principle is important for people making hiring and promotion decisions to understand, because
The Michael principle he just explained could potentially be the fact that he was gifted at X, but he didn't even understand that he was gifted at something. That's a legitimate way for something like that to happen. Because people who are gifted at something have no idea that other people even see that thing as complicated. So they have no idea what's the problem when someone else can't do the same thing as well as they can do it. So they don't explain shit or whatever. And that's what makes them bad, because they don't understand why they were good at something.
cursory understanding of this theory would have you believe that corporate positions are simply a ladder, where each rung is harder to climb than the one below it, which is of course simply not true. This means that some Peters could do really well in a position above their current role, just as they had done well in a position below their current role. But nobody would ever know because they aren't going to be promoted outside of their position that they aren't doing well in. And nobody wants to move into a position below.
Well, yes, obviously, that's called taking unnecessary risks.
Below what they currently have. The Peter Principle also covers a unique brand of manager who is no longer motivated by promotions. These are the people that may have been motivated to go above and beyond to secure themselves a promotion or a big pay raise, but are now happy with the job and the salary that they have. They don't
Absolute fucking loser trash that should be eradicated from this world. If you're happy with your current position, that means one of two things. One, you're a woman, and that's completely fine. Live your best life. That's how women do things. But if you're a man, you're garbage. Happy with your current position? Disgusting.
want to be promoted, so there is no reason for them to put in the work beyond the bare minimum to avoid termination. So far, we have only looked at the often hated middle managers in large corporations. These are the people that statistically, most of you watching will have the displeasure of dealing with in your careers. But these issues often go right up to the very top. Founder syndrome is the theory that companies face significant difficulty when their founders maintain disproportionate control over the company's activities, coming at the expense of the employees' share.
Oh my god, this is such a fucking stupid argument. Like, you're the reason this company is having success. and then someone is saying your company could be doing better if it didn't follow your guiding principles. You know you can't question management because not only they will fire you because that does not give cohesion. You know good leaders are people who just pretty much tell people what to do. It doesn't even matter. Oh, is it good or bad? As long as you at least have a cohesive direction to go in, you're winning.
Shareholders and customers. Founders are obviously very important figures in a company, and their vision is what is responsible for getting the company started in the first place. But great visionaries are often not great managers. Founders can often conflate themselves with the brand. Who do you think when I say SpaceX, Facebook, Microsoft, or even Bloomberg?
Mark Zuckerberg for every single one of them for some reason?
This can be good if the founder is charismatic and publicly likable, but that's rare because the public doesn't generally like billionaire company founders that much. This gets a whole lot worse if they end up doing something
Except Elon Musk. He should probably open up his own religion and get tax cuts.
terrible because their personal
Bigger tax cuts, I mean.
reputation is inextricably linked to the company's reputation. Founder syndrome is also likely to foster a culture of micromanagement as founders want to retain control over all elements of the business, no matter how large.
Yes, and that's usually not exactly devastating. Like, they're taking one concept that can be bad and they're pushing and saying that, yeah, this is devastating, all the bullshit. This is just taking things that, all of these things could be good or bad what they're talking about, but they are associating it with one specific role. For example, oh, your founder, the guy who made this company successful, still wants to micromanage every part of it that he wants to micromanage? Oh, that's horrible. He should have no input into things now because it's a big... That's so fucking stupid.
Large it gets. The founder's skills and experience play a huge part in the initial success of a company, and they often want their work precisely replicated by everybody that comes on board to assist them with scaling the business.
Yeah.
Founders also fail to manage the tedium that comes with running an effective business. A startup is fast-paced, and a company leadership will be challenged every day with massive decisions that will determine the direction and survival of the business.
Yeah, that's not even just for startups. that's kind of for everyone, you know?
Once a company is at scale, though, a lot of senior managers' time is simply spent overseeing boring business functions. Are people being paid on time? Are staff workloads being managed effectively? Are
staff workloads okay? Are people getting paid on time? What the fuck are you smoking? That's accounting.
expenses being properly processed?
That's also fucking accounting. Admittedly, yeah, maybe they're coming from the position of your company has X money, and it is normal, by the way, to not pay your providers for sometimes a month, sometimes 2 months, depending on the rapport between you. But you know, that's all accounting. If you're the department that is responsible for buying shit, you just fucking place a stamp on the invoice that comes in, and then you send that shit up to the people who actually pay the bills. Oh my god, what the fuck is this?
These are all things that are essential to a healthy business, and they are all roles that a good CEO should oversee.
Accountants, that's the word I was missing there. You send it up to the fucking accountants. Oh, this is so wrong.
But good founders don't necessarily make good managers, and these kinds of tedious tasks are the first to be neglected by self-proclaimed big picture guys. If management is eternally destined to suck, then what can people do if they want to try and be good managers themselves?
I don't even know how to respond to this considering everything wrong he said here.
First of all, that is a noble pursuit, and I guarantee wanting to be a good manager makes you a better manager than most people. The next step is to really ask yourself why
That was the most meta thing I have ever heard in my life.
you want to be a manager in the first place. For many people, the reason is that positions where you manage people are more prestigious and better compensated.
Yep.
If you're in it for the money and the power, then don't be shy about it. Just be honest with yourself and admit that you are probably going to end up doing a subpar job. If you do genuinely want to do well for all business stakeholders, then the next most important thing to ask yourself is if you have the right stuff to be an effective manager. There are things you can do to improve these skills, but there are still always going to be people that are happier keeping to themselves and working on a task they are individually good at. The Dilbert.
Yeah. And by your account, that means that you should promote them? But obviously not.
Principle that we discussed earlier is often used to discredit managers that can't do the work of their subordinates, but the principle does work.
Wait. It's true that managers should, by the way, look, this is what I'm talking about. This would boost efficiency through the goddamn roof if every woman looked like this. But anyway, where were we about management? Wait, I lost my train of thought because of her.
Earlier is often used to discredit managers that can't do the work of their subordinates.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, managers should understand how to do the work of their subordinates in an ideal world. But the truth is, managers don't actually need to do that. Managers just need to understand, are things good, are things flowing, and are things working out. If a manager knows how to use some kind of esoteric program that you need to use on a daily basis to get results, yeah, that's cute if he knows that. But if he doesn't know that, he has employees specifically who are literally there to do it for him.
But the principle does work in reverse too. Some of the very best managers in a company would not be very good at the operational work that their team does. They instead have the people skills to know what tasks to leave up to what people, and the self-awareness to know that micromanagement is not helpful, valuable, or appreciated.
Micromanagement. Again, they're just going into one extreme after the other. No, micromanaging things how happen is like the best thing a manager can almost ever do, as long as they don't overstep their boundaries and they don't do it too much without good reason. But no, a good manager oversees how their workers do things, and if they fail at something, they will fix the situation why something is happening that's failing. A good manager pretty much honestly just asks their employees who are competent, what do you need to succeed at the task? That's pretty much honestly it.
The story of managers single-handedly guiding company to successes are rarely true, but it is important that you believe that they are. To find out why, go and watch my video analyzing the myth of the job creator.
The myth of... oh god. I think I'm gonna watch more of these videos because how money works is just like... It's like a ripoff of Economics Explained, and Economics Explained is not bad, but admittedly they are going... they are out of my function of what I know, I know, because they were more talking about countries and economics of countries as a whole, and I'm less, and I understand that part a little bit less. But yeah, maybe we're gonna look more into this because, man, this video was fucking garbage. Well played, How Money Works. 10 out of garbage 10. Subscribe and like the video, by the way.